Hi all, Sarranuva here, and I'm back again with another video. Today I'm going to be discussing the gold mine that starts at the beginning of every expansion, Darkmoon Cards. Shadowlands is no different to previous expansions, and Darkmoon Cards are present and ready to start making you a ton of gold. If you're unaware of Darkmoon Cards, these are created through the inscription profession. You need to create 8 unique type of cards, the ace through to the 8, to complete a full deck. These decks then create a trinket that's desirable at the beginning of every expansion due to the lack of achievable trinket slots in the game. And guess what? Shadowlands is going to be no different. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, as I will be producing similar content in the future and I would hate for you to miss it. So, what are the new Shadowlands Darkmoon decks? Before I actually get into the decks, there is going to be a big change coming to the Darkmoon decks in Shadowlands. The trinkets that the deck creates are changing to on-use as opposed to an equip effect that we are used to in previous expansions. Whether this changes the desirability of the decks is something to be seen, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on before you invest heavily. With Shadowlands, there's going to be 4 new Darkmoon decks to create. Darkmoon Deck Veracity creates a trinket that will mainly become the melee DPS trinket due to the haste use effect converting into agility and strength. Darkmoon Deck Putrescence creates a trinket that will become the range DPS trinket due to the intellect stats. Darkmoon Deck Repose creates a trinket that will become the healer's trinket of choice. And then the trinket that's always in demand, the Darkmoon Deck Indomitable, creates a trinket that will become the go-to tanking trinket at the start of every expansion. And this is the one for Shadowlands. So here you ask, how do you actually make the Darkmoon decks of Shadowlands? Similar to past expansions, you use a single item that randomly creates any of the 32 cards that are available from the 4 decks. In Shadowlands, this recipe is called the Darkmoon Card of Death. Don't get that confused with the deck of the same name from Wrath of the Lich King. This recipe is going to be taught by the inscription trainer in Erebus, as well as all the other inscription recipes, and it requires level 95 Shadowlands inscription. And to create the card, you need 7 luminous ink, 7 umbral ink, 1 tranquil ink, and 1 dark parchment. One new addition in Shadowlands is that the recipe will create a blank card from one of the 4 decks. You can then create a card from that deck with an additional tranquil ink, so again there's going to be large proc opportunities to build decks quick and fast in Shadowlands. The herb requirements for Darkmoon decks hasn't really changed. In my previous video on Shadowlands Inscription, I looked at missives and I covered the herbs and the milling in Shadowlands in a little bit more detail, so if you want to find out a bit more, check that out. As I've also mentioned, there are 3 main inks needed for these cards: the luminous ink, the umbral ink, and the rare tranquil ink. All of these are made from milling the common herbs of Shadowlands: Death Blossom, Marrow Root, Rising Glory, Vigil's Touch, and Widow Bloom, and these are milled into pigments for the respective inks. However, those familiar with Legion inscription will be pleased to know that the new Fellwort of Shadowlands is going to be Nightshade. This is a rare herb that has a much higher proc rate of producing large quantities of all pigments, particularly tranquil pigments for tranquil inks. One side note to mention though is that umbral ink is now the ink used to trade ink for inks from the past expansions, so the cost initially might be a little bit higher. But the main question is, how can you make gold from Shadowlands Darkmoon decks? If you're new to the inscription trade and you've never experienced the Darkmoon trade at the beginning of an expansion, then you're in for a very addictive surprise. If you've ever collected sticker albums or traded Pokemon cards, then you'll get it. You simply need to collect the cards to complete the deck, and this can be done one of 2 ways. Build up your inventory by crafting cards and sitting on them until you have enough to complete the deck. The chances of creating a certain card are higher than others, so you'll end up with an abundance of excess cards. Previously, the ace and the 8 of a card is often the rarer card to achieve, but this may change in Shadowlands. The other option that you have is that you can use trade chat to swap a rare card for another rare card from a different deck. Be mindful that there will be a demand for specific decks higher than the others. At the start of an expansion, you do tend to see tanking and healing cards being in demand and eventually tailing off. You can also use the good old auction house to sell and buy cards. This is where you'll spend the majority of your gold, but you will make it back by creating the decks for a ton of gold in the first couple of days to weeks of Shadowlands. So the question is, do you need to prepare anything for Shadowlands to create these Darkmoon decks? I would ideally prepare your account with 3 things. Have a large quantity of gold that you're willing to spend on items to be first to market on your server. They will generally be selling items for a wide variety of prices, particularly herbs, so keep an eye on the auction house for that. I would also recommend a level 50 herbalist. Start leveling this character from release day so you can use the herbs to max out the inscription. And if you don't already have one, a level 50 inscriptor. If you don't have it on the same character as the herbalist, then make sure that he ends up being max level and can at least get to Oribos to learn the profession and new recipes so you can use herbs to max out the skill as soon as possible. Thanks for making it this far through the video, and I really hope it was helpful for you. What do you think of Darkmoon cards in Shadowlands? Will the on-use change these cards and make them redundant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate every single one of you. As per, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in another video.